tell you something that a big majority of you don't know, probably because you don't research. As you know, there's a website called theflatearthsociety.org. Do not read that website if you want to learn the truth. This website, theflatearthsociety.org, is controlled opposition. Okay, even though it looks so awesome and cool and so important and stuff, it's controlled opposition. It's just a website that mixes truth with lies and satire. And the purpose of this website is to discredit the genuine flat Earth research. And they're doing this since 1970. So the origin of this website, and back in the day, of course, there was no website, but the origin of the whole this Flat Earth Society thing is from 1970. So there's a guy called Leo Ferrari, like the car, and he is suspected to be a Freemason and philosophy professor at St. Thomas University. He's dead now, so he passed away in 2010. But though he passed away, the website, the Flat Earth Society, exists today, and the moderators and the people who are actually managing that website, they're in the footsteps of this Leo Ferrari, who in the past 50 years, since he created this Flat Earth Society in 1970, their only purpose was to make the flat Earth, the real flat Earth and the real flat Earth research, as a subject of joke and stuff. So more than that. So before all this happened, why did the FlatEarthSociety.org, why was it created, and why was a guy like Leo Ferrari put or paid to mock the flat earthers? Because the first genuine truth seeker, in terms of like gathering all the people around, because obviously in the 19th century and before the Second World War, there were people in the world who would research flat earth, but there was no international organization or organized group. So the first organized group that dedicated themselves to the truth of flat earth was in 1956. And in 1956, so pretty much a decade after the Second World War, there was a genuine truth seeker and flat earth researcher by the name of Samuel Shenton. Samuel Shenton has started, he's the first one to start the IFERS, which stands for International Flat Earth Research Society. And when he started this in 1956, you can imagine, in a world with no internet and pretty much no TV and no radio. Even so, they were making a very huge impact with publications on paper and newspapers and stuff, and interviews, and they were revealing the truth to everybody, to the masses. So the globalists and the people who are like from NASA and stuff and all that thing, they attempted to ignore the threat. So at the beginning they didn't take any actions, but then a decade later, in 1970, they created the Flat Earth Society. So the Flat Earth Society was created in 1970 as control opposition to fight against Samuel Shenton and his International Flat Earth Research Society, who are the only people who are speaking the truth in a day when there was no internet and there was no TV, color TV, or like there was just radio and newspapers. And they've been doing that so the Flat Earth Society has been mocking the real, genuine flat earthers for pretty much 50 years now. Well, more than that, if you take, in 1970, so that's pretty much 50 years. So to give you an idea of how this control opposition works, Leo Ferrari, the then president of the Flat Earth Society, would go on to make interviews and stuff, and he would like give all sorts of comments on how he would go to the edge of the earth, and in order not to fall from the edge of the earth, he would have this rock and he would hang to the rock and stuff. So lots of like weird things, that the only purpose of this guy and his FlatEarthSociety.org website today is to make people who actually want to go into the subject, to make them feel lost and to make them look at this as if it's just like a stupid insult to humanity and just a joke, and that's it. And unfortunately for us, it works, because lots of people who are like, they come from being ignorant and stuff. The first contact they have is the FlatEarthSociety.org, just because they made the website so foundable, and they have good people, and from a technical perspective they have really good people who promote the website, unlike the original Flat Earth Society research group, and unfortunately they did not have the money and the power to compete in that way. And also there was this problem afterwards, because after the first president, so after Samuel Shenton died, the next president of the IFERS, of the International Flat Earth Research Society, was Charles K. Johnson. He was another genuine flat earther and the one who speaks the truth. So he took over the IFERS from the deceased Shenton, along with his wife. And then in 1974, Johnson wrote to Ferrari. Actually, Johnson wrote to Ferrari three times in a row, and Ferrari only replied once, so you don't get lost. So Johnson, from the IFERS, from the real flat earthers, he wrote to the fake flat earthers, to the Flat Earth Research Society, so the flatearthsociety.org. He wrote three times to get in touch, and the guys at the flatearthsociety.org, they didn't reply. So this was in the days when there was no internet still. So at the third time that he wrote, he got a reply from Leo Ferrari, but only with a paid application form. In those days, you could also pay and make an application form, like via newspaper, via magazine. It was a like paid magazine and stuff. So Johnson from the IFERS, so the real flat earthers, they investigated Ferrari and their Flat Earth Society, and they came to the conclusion that they're only using the name of Flat Earth to promote mockery and to make fun, etc., etc. So unfortunately, and this is why I am saying that most of the people, that you don't know what happened in history, so it's important for you to understand. Johnson's house was burned, and this happened because there was an arson attack by a NASA agent. Now, of course, you will never find this anywhere because nobody would actually agree to that, but his house, interesting enough, right, the house of Johnson, who was the president of the International Flat Earth Research Society, where they had all the materials from all his lifetime and the lifetime of the former presidents of Samuel Shenton. Everything got burned. So I guess you get the point, right? Why would the house of the leader, of the president of the International Flat Earth Society would get burned to the ground? Why? Because they burned all the materials. In those days there was no internet, so everything was physically stored and everything was burned. Because NASA, and remember this was like in the days of the Apollo missions and all that stuff, so they pretty much just organized an arson attack and they burned everything to the ground. Not having any internet and not having any like cloud storage or other like old computers and stuff, everything was lost. So you can only imagine the amount of information that the president of the International Flat Earth Research Society, the IFERS, had in that place. So yeah, whenever you go to the website, the flatearthsociety.org, just forget about it. If you want a website or like a place where you can actually understand things much better, in a much better way, the only person who actually has followed in the footsteps of the original flat earthers is Eric Dubay, and Eric Dubay has his own International Flat Earth Research Society forum, which is actually IFERS or ifers.123.st. I think it still works because he was banned. Yeah, it works. So if you type in your browser ifers.123.st, because he was banned by the host provider, by the previous host provider. So in the end, he managed to reopen it again. So you can imagine the problems, right? The president of the IFER Society, his house got burned and all the materials were lost. And in the case of Eric Dubay, he got banned by his host provider. So he had to search for a different host provider. And you can only just, it's mind blowing, right? It's crazy. And he's not doing anything bad. I mean, both of them didn't do anything bad. It's just so you understand how deep controlled opposition goes. So, of course they know, these guys from NASA and like from the government and stuff, they know that flat earth is the real truth and is the real thing. And like what they're doing is like what Lenin was doing from Russia, from communist Russia. Lenin said the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. So that's what the government in NASA is doing. Instead of fighting against the flat earthers, the Flat Earth Society, they created their own Flat Earth Society, and they're just combining lies and truths so that people don't know anything anymore. So if you're like a person who doesn't have the time, or you're too lost because you don't have the amount of knowledge and wisdom to actually navigate through the lies, you would just find yourself going to the flatearthsociety.org website, and then you would get completely lost. And that's their purpose. Their purpose is to make people fight against each other, to hate each other, and that's, divide and conquer. That's the whole thing. So I'll leave the 2 links at the end of the video, so you know which link is CRAPSHIT and which link is the actual good stuff, the nice stuff that helps you navigate and leave the lies behind and just get used to the truth. It's fascinating once you know, but I was the same. So when I was younger, I would go to the first site I actually visited from the Flat Earth, like the first real site, was the flatearthsociety.org, and I was so happy. They have some interesting things there. I'm not saying everything is bad, but like I said, they're mixing lots of lies in that truth. And then afterwards, when I found out about the Eric Dubay International Flat Earth Research Society, I was so happy because I actually saw the difference between the two. It's too bad that Eric Dubay doesn't have the support that the flatearthsociety.org has, because obviously when you don't have the support of government and NASA and all that stuff, that's why it is. But anyway, at least we still have something on the internet. And even, to be honest, they did a very good job, these people from the government and NASA, to hide the good information, because it took, if you start researching all this stuff, usually the first thing that comes into your browser when you research and stuff are all the people who are actually liars. Even some of the big figures on YouTube, people who are considered like top flat earthers, they're liars as well. So nobody actually gets to there's very few people in the world. Eric Dubay is one of them, and there's like a couple of more who actually, there's actually 4 or 5 more, right? But they don't have that reach like the others have. So whenever you see a person who doesn't have the reach, worldwide speaking, because they don't have the resources and stuff, then that person or those people are actually closer to the truth than the typical people who actually promote it. Because as you know, YouTube and the internet has completely banned, in a way, from an algorithmic perspective, the algorithm has completely banned all the people who actually speak the truth, and they're only promoting people who mix lies with truth, and they just do mockery and jokes and stuff for the purpose of making false claims. So that's it. I'll leave you that, and I'll see you guys in the next video.